Welcome to Elevated Conversations, a space where depth meets dialogue, where creativity, consciousness, humanity, and honest conversation come together to expand the way we think, create, live, and connect. This podcast was created for the thinkers, the builders, the artists, the visionaries, the people who know that there is more to life than just surface level noise and performative success. Here in this space, we're going to explore the conversations that stay with you long after the episode ends. Conversations that are rooted in awareness, creativity, perspective, growth, alignment, and human experience itself. And honestly, I couldn't imagine a more aligned first guest to begin this journey with. I am beyond excited. I'm over the moon to introduce to you my very first guest on this first episode. So, wherever you are tuning in from, welcome. Whether you found us through Live, Love, Flow channel, the creative world, through personal development, through a friend, through the school program, through art, through curiosity, or simply through divine timing, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you're here. I am your host, Diana Pequeno, and this is Elevated Conversations. Today's guest is someone very special. He isn't someone who just creates art. He creates worlds. He creates ecosystems. Hansheng Lee is a mixed multimedia artist. He's an educator, an ecosystem thinker, community builder, and the founder of the Art Collective International, which is a creative multimedia studio centered around art, education, sustainability, collaboration, and conscious thinking. Rooted in the in-between spaces between nature and technology, tradition and experimentation, clarity and care, Hansheng brings a perspective that feels deeply needed in the world that we need today. He's a Taiwanese American artist whose work and philosophy invite us to think differently about creativity, not just as an expression, but as connection. And that's what we're here for today. It's a responsibility, it's community, it's living, breathing relationship between people, ideas, and environments that we create together. This episode feels less like an interview, to be quite honest, and more like sitting inside an unfolding conversation between two people generally curious about life, friendship, creativity, humanity, possibility, the global world, and love and life itself. And that's exactly what I hope this podcast becomes. Not performance, not noise, not empty inspiration, but real life conversations that truly move us, that challenge us, that remind us of who we are and maybe even who we're becoming. So, with that being said, it's my honor to welcome the very first guest of Elevated Conversations, Hansheng Lee. All right, we're about to dive into it. I know that I keep saying thank you, thank you, thank you, and as much gratitude as I have, but it is time to get this story and this conversation on the roll. Thank you again so much, Hansheng, for being a part of this conversation, this elevated conversation, whether it's in your life, in your business, and all of the magical things that you have to offer and that you share with the world. I cannot wait to share with the audience what you do, how you do it, and the way you continue to show up for yourself, your family, your friends, and everybody in your community. Today, we're going to dive into elevating life through art. And I would really like to start off this conversation on asking you, what does it mean for you to elevate through the eyes of art or the love of art in your life and in your business?
Before I start, thank you so much for having me. And that is such a loaded question. There's so many facets to it. I grew up around the arts. I have always been surrounded by some form of it, and I mean, art is still to this day everywhere. Even if people are unaware or just don't pay attention to it and don't see it that way. Oh, that's so broad and big and expansive. And art for me has been, I don't want to say entirely a part of me because, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a marine biologist or a biologist of some sort working with animals. Excuse me. And and then it kind of morphed into, well, I really love drawing animals and being out in nature. And growing up, it was, weekends you get sent out the door and don't come home until it's dinner time. So I'd have my little sketchbook, my little thing of pens, and like I'd go down to the creek or wander through the woods and look at creatures and would like write about it and draw about it. And slowly it was just, shifting into, oh, well, I enjoy this. This feels very natural to me. It's something that I I wasn't pushed away from or towards it, just gravitated towards. And over time it evolved into, me thinking about what am I going to do after, high school, and the proverbial, what are you going to go to college for and what do you want to do for work? And I I wanted to do it all, without any sense of self-sacrificing myself and n- not allowing myself to do the things that light me up and bring passion and joy to me. I found it really difficult to not do things that I always want to do. Um, but the arts themselves, from cooking to gardening to painting and drawing and illustrating, those things that bring, a spark to other people, a semblance that you can, no matter what avenue or walk of life you come from, is possible. And it's also so rewarding to see, not just, when I have a great, moment of painting where like, oh, this came out exactly how I envisioned it, to watching students or people on their own art paths figuring out that, oh, all I had to do was just this little tweak, and they light up. And yeah, overall it's rewarding and beautiful. So I guess we could start there.
I love that. Would you say that there is a certain turning point that you discovered art, or would you say that you have always been enveloped by it? That maybe there was maybe a specific day or maybe an experience that you realize art is genuinely always going to be a part of my life. I'd love for you to share maybe that moment or that feeling. I love that smile right there. It says it all.
Yeah, there is. Art has always been a huge part of my life and household. Uh, I'm Taiwanese American, and I grew up, one foot in one world, one foot in another. So I feel like I'm this interloper, kind of transiently crossing these borders, never settled in one. But I remember when I was in eighth grade, I had just moved to a new county, a new home, and taking, the extracurricular courses. And I'd always wanted to do something with the arts. I loved it in elementary school, but my previous middle school was very like selective on who they would allow into the arts program. So when I transferred in, um, there was an opening in a art course class, And I said, okay, well, here's a chance. Let's see what happens. And I dove into that class like I just dove all in. Like, forget keyboard, forget violin, forget anything else, forget chorus, forget, like, this was, it just felt right and it fit. And I had a great teacher who was very supportive and very aware of my passion for visual arts, along with other forms of arts, but was very understanding and patient and nurturing of that. And I would always get, whatever the rubric or prompt for the time frame was, and then I would finish the first piece, and then with any leftover time, I would just make a second piece because why not? And there was one piece that I made that she ended up submitting to, I think it was like a Scholastic student show or something, and it like won an award, and I was like, what? Um, she didn't tell me she did that at the time either. She was just like, "Oh, I submitted your piece, and here's your award for it." And I was just kind of blown away, like, "Oh, I I could do something with this. This is kind of surreal, kind of crazy, kind of super exciting, but also like, whoa, maybe I should rethink a little bit on where I want to go." And also, I know that the sciences require heavy maths, which to this day still aren't my is not my forte. Um, but arts were something that was just ingrained. My parents are both calligraphers, and my mother especially is has beautiful form and handwriting. Um, and yeah, the arts are so, seeing how art is viewed between Eastern culture and Western culture was like this very big divide shift in the middle of, like, one side is very, it's not beneath anyone, it's not anything different from a scholar or a doctor or a lawyer, versus you're going to starve and you're going to have to work really hard and you're going to struggle if you choose that route. And so, kind of navigating the ins and out of, okay, all right, I have to make a choice. And I chose the arts ultimately. But it started in that eighth grade classroom, um, with a painting of a lotus.
There's so much power just in that, maybe that piece of artwork or just the lotus itself. I resonate with that so much on what the lotus represents and how it grows in that sense.
Very
So
much so.
I love that. Is there something that perhaps your inner child or your younger self is jumping up and down and screaming about right now in a proud moment? Is there your
Mhm.
younger child in disbelief that, or proud? Absolutely should be proud of, we did it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially the last couple of weeks, I got some new tools and some new paper that I've always wanted to work with, but never brought myself, never allowed myself the time to, just because there's so many working parts to everything going on in my life. And my mother and uncle recently came back from Taiwan, so they were like, okay, well, here's the hi Kaimo,
Mm.
here's the tools that you had requested. Um, and it was like a huge ream of Shuen paper and these wonderful brushes that were made from, like, multiple wild hairs and synthetics, and just a playground of learning and fun and what I like to call research, but it is play also. Um, and I don't know why I never went towards the Asian art route in a sense. Mainly, maybe because it was very like I was very stuck in a corporate mindset of, commercialized art and art that sells and what moves on and what moves and then I made my first piece and it was just like, I get this. I don't know if it's somewhere deep within me or if it's cultural and ancestral, but this feeling of painting, this space that is this ritual, because it is very much a ritualistic setup where you set your space, you set the tone, you work on what you're working on with your ideas, but there's no sketching really involved. It's kind of you're working with the brush, with the paint, with the water and the paper, and that's that. Everything else I've just kind of left to intuition and my own experience with watercolor and different papers. And the learning curve has been crazy, but I really enjoy it. I mean, I love it. I It's been something that I've kind of shifted my schedule to where at the end of the night before I wind down, I'll spend at least 1 hour just painting, regardless of how crazy, how hectic, what is going on. I've been making the time to do that, and it's been so great and rewarding.
I will be the first to admit that you have inspired me to step back into my art. I told you this conversation just in the last Saturday. I jumped into your community about how I hadn't drawn, much less sketched. I always see myself painting. I haven't made time for it. There's always something that takes a front seat in my art and creativity. Certain certain elements of creativity takes a back seat, and there's always that tap on my shoulder saying, you want to spend more time doing this. So I truly appreciate you for opening a door for me to step back into that and honoring myself and creating time to do that. You mentioned something just now that sparked a thought in my mind, and I'd like to dive into it. And it's not necessarily a question, but I know how much depth your mind holds and how artistic you are. So I'm going to just leave it with a comment. Um, the canvas versus the art.
I mean, the canvas is the base, right? Your possibilities are limitless. You can do whatever. You can remove the canvas. You can alter it. You can put holes in it and then build upon what you've, subtracted before you even begin to add to it. And oh, that's mm, it gives me tingles. I There's so much on a blank canvas that I mean, it used to give me a stall of like what am I doing? Where am I going with this? Where do I want to take this? How do I want to, navigate this piece? And you know, as I've matured and as I've leveled up and as I've grown, it's kind of a just paint. Just allow yourself the space to paint now is at least how I approach a lot of my large scale paintings, and I mean even my small paintings. It's more of a just do it. The painting will reveal itself. The final product will be what it is, and the final piece will be what it is. Whether it's stained glass, or stained glass is a little bit more planned, but mosaics, enamel pieces versus paintings and watercolor, and just to enjoy that process, that moment. We don't slow down enough, and we aren't mindful in the modern era of the value of being intentional with what we do and trying to force a presence or force something into existence that is imaginary. Um, and this goes from, physical work to digital work. And I, I really value that intentionality, that moment of this is only going to happen in this moment in this way, no matter how many times I try to recreate it. Um, and there's something so beautiful to me in that instance, in the way that your brush is hitting that paper. And especially and this is just really fresh on my mind because last night, you know, when you lay down a brush loaded with paint on shred paper, which is like a handmade paper is not forgiving. Once it's down, and that's where it's staying. It's not like watercolor paper where you can kind of lift and erase your mistakes, but once it's down, it's there, and you have to work with it. You have to figure out, okay, what's the next step? What's the next layer? Where do you want to add or subtract? And I purposely chose painting peonies um, with this paper because one, peonies are in full bloom still. We're on like round 3 or 4 of peonies in vases all around my house. It smells fantastic, but also it's like the perfect reference just because of the hues and the tones and the ombreing of depth from those flowers. Um, and it's also really easy when you have a vase full of flowers that you're painting in front of you to kind of be like, okay, I see how this is in front of me. How do I get this down on paper without making it too realistic and too forced, but also still reading as what it is? Um, yeah, I've been lost in that sea. I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about painting um, pr- probably for the last couple of weeks, just like endlessly now.
This is so relatable. Maybe just for me personally, but I think this is relatable. And when I wanted to bring this conversation to the table, to the elevated conversation, because it is something that I hold near and dear to my heart. And I recognize and that art is an outlet. And what you said so many things. If those who are watching, I would encourage you to go back to what Hansheng shared with us just now. So much of what he shared with us and what I felt are applied to art, but also can be applied to our life. And the canvas, the way the canvas absorbs, and once it's there, it's there. And we can try to manipulate or call it a mistake, or we can just build on top of it and continue to create our masterpiece. And we can still make a beautiful piece and life out of it. It's all in the way that we stroke. It's all in the tools that we choose to hold in our hand and the way that we choose to show up as the architect and the artist in our life and what we're creating. So I heard and felt so many nuggets of goodness in that, on how art can elevate our lives. And for anybody at no matter what age, You can start or you can begin again, no matter what, and whatever canvas, whatever item, whether it's crayons or markers or sculpting, whether it's clay, if it's chalk, if it's sandcastles, even. It all starts from just beginning to move through that and create something and step outside of ourselves every single day, that we don't have to construct or try so hard to build things, um, and just be centered and balanced and allow ourselves to create just for the art of creation. I think we've talked about that many, many times.
Oh, very, very much so. Art asks us to pay attention. It asks us to also take a perspective. Um, whether you are painting or drawing or, gardening, landscape designing, art asks you to take a step back and gain perspective on what you're making and doing and creating, whether you're cooking or drawing or gardening. You take a step back, you look at your piece, you take a sip and figure out the flavor profiles and what you're missing. There's a sense of modern day is very much so, rush to get it done, rush to get it done as quickly and swiftly and at the same time as precise as you can, but it doesn't give you the room to figure out how you want to get there. What's the way that flows with you instead of against you? Whereas art is very much limitless on how you want to get to an end goal. It's a pause in the hectic everyday life. And even when I'm working on, design pieces or digital pieces, there's always moments of that where I'm sent to this mind space of, all right, technically, like from a technical standpoint, this is good. What can I do to make it feel more me and to feel less of that resistance between start and end, and to make everything feel more connected, to breathe a little bit more of a personality into it, whether it's, a logo design versus a graphic. Yeah, I I owe a lot to the people around me for acknowledging and being super supportive of going down the art route. Um, well, I say this with hesitation. Um, my first degree was culinary arts, and when my mother found out, she had completely like blown a gasket because she's an immigrant. She had no choice in her mind but to work in a restaurant, and it was safe and familiar, and had community already. And she's always disliked cooking with an immense passion. She's a fantastic cook, but when it comes to like holidays or any events, uh, it's not her personal choice. Um, so after finding out that I had, already completed my culinary degree, she kind of was just like, "What are you going to open your own restaurant? It's also a lot of work. It's a lot of you're not going to be home and all the ins and out, which I grew up with, so I was already kind of prepared. And I had also worked in the family restaurant since I was, it's a family restaurant, there's no age limit. um it was very in the back of my mind, something that I love doing. I love feeding people, and I think I get that from my grandmother, who would never let anyone go hungry. Um, be it a friend, be it, you know, someone coming into our house who's just like a door-to-door salesman, and she spoke zero English, but, eat and, goodbye and hello, and that was, like, the extent of her English. But I love that warmth I that it gives. I I still resonate with that today. I still will try to feed anyone who steps into my house, but and, uh, young me was blithely unaware that culinary arts was still within the arts realm, um, and that's what kind of kicked that off. But after the the blow up moment of, you know, you can do so much more with your life, XYZ. And I mean, she wasn't exactly wrong either, because culinary arts wasn't ever my intention to be a final stop. Just more of a addition to myself. So I went back to school and ended up getting, well, ended up in art education and illustration. I started in painting and printmaking, but I transferred out of my original college and then got a master's in illustration. Um, and I mean, worked in corporate art for 17-ish years, and finally I chose to make art for myself versus, drawing other people's characters and backgrounds and stories, just because I wanted to make things that were also meaningful to me and that could better represent me. Um, and the ins and out of corporate art is very much bureaucratic systems and a very rigid schedule, which I am not one to enjoy. I'll put it that way.
We share this take. We've talked about that.
Yeah,
I love thank you for sharing that. Because one of the questions I was going to ask you about is that how this has continued to show up in your life. But ultimately, I already know this, but the audience really deserves to hear about ACI and what you're doing and now, not just in the scope of things where you've aligned your artistry, culinary arts between art and food and even plants. Well, just we're just going to bring that because that's going to come up eventually. It's universal language, is it not? I truly
it
believe that
is.
it is. But you are doing fantastic things with ACI. And so I'd love to hear or share more about that, your journey and what's happening now and the plans for the greatest future.
Oh, there's so much going on now. The Art Collective International was born out of a rejection of modern galleries plus corporate art, to a sense, authorship and I don't want to say an anti, uh, formal art movement, but to also give a platform to artists that are just starting out, are unsure of where they want to go, and looking for a community, or even if you're returning to the arts themselves. It's multifaceted from, you know, high level client work to local vendor markets and artisan markets. Um, it's been a passion of mine. I wanted to start an art collective when I was in high school. Just a bunch of artists working together and creating, and the banter and there's an energy to that space where we can all be working on different things and still land where we are landing, but together. It's a little less stressful. It kind of gives you that support and network and backbone, uh, and also gains perspective from things that you didn't think about. Especially with so many talented creators around me, it's really hard to feel stuck nowadays, because I can ask and, like, what do you think about this, or what would you do to push this piece a little more, or someone asking me the same things. It's a conversation. It's uplifting one another, and the arts are so important. And ACI also stands a huge part for accessibility. The first thing that usually gets cut in funding in public schools is the arts, which I think is uh, I have a very, very loaded file in my mind on what that is. Um, but ultimately, we want to be able to give people who are interested in learning the arts a place where they can start, a starting point with community, with people who are, you know, just like them, started out just like them, no strings attached. Come as you are, and we'll meet you there. Um, if you want to learn, we have free courses. And if you want to learn beyond that, there's options for that as well. And if you're already an artist, we have a featured artist program that we launched this year. So yeah, it's so multifaceted, and I'm extremely proud of everyone involved. It's been so crazy, cool, exciting, a little stressful and nerve-wracking, um, to see this, everything start to amalgamate into, I mean, essentially into a garden space, an ecosystem. And yeah, it's a wild ride. It's expensive, and it's still going. It's still, it's still blooming, and things are still changing and shifting and popping up. But yeah, it's ACI is ACI is a force that's coming, one way or another.
Definitely. Definitely. I appreciate you sharing about that. I am grateful to be a part of your community. Like I said when we first started, a community that has helped me and inspired me to continue to explore my art outside of the things that I'm already doing, but to revisit things that I've put on the back burner and embrace it as a whole part of me again. And I'm having fun with art again. I'm having fun being a member in your community and meeting members in your community. So I will share the link in today's podcast and the description below. But just real quick, since we're on the topic, could you go ahead and share your school link and the name of your school program here now, and then I will make sure that we link that
Absolutely.
in.
It is www.school.com/, the Art Collective International dash 5768. It is it's a really cool space. There's so many things that are coming. We have videos and tutorials that are currently being worked on and edited. And I mean, I have a whole house load full of projects and things that I want to share with everyone and teach and give people the opportunity to learn. And that's just one aspect of ACI.
I have been loving the conversation that we're having thus far, as I always do. And I want to share with our audience and those that are watching today. I recognize you to be a multifaceted artist, and I see all of the things that you're doing in your business and your life. Would you please share your business that you are currently working on, maybe other partnerships that you're involved in, how those intertwine and evolve in your life? And other creative collaborations, anything of that scope that you would be so inclined to share with us?
Absolutely. The Art Collective International is one business. It is a partnership business, but Lee Hansheng Studios is the all encompassing of me. It handles it handles architectural landscape design. It handles recipe concepts and formations and creations. It handles all the other different layers that I'm passionate about that are in the realm of the arts still, but maybe not quite necessarily formal art education in that sense. And that's just kind of how I've always operated. It also includes perennial planning, which is my framework for how I kind of get through life without burning out, but also how I use it as a superpower to get everything done. And yeah, I mean, there's a clear partnership between Lee Hansheng Studios and the Art Collective International. Um, it's kind of a much closer in relations, but when it comes down to things that are outside of the scope of ACI, such as business consulting, brand work, that lays a little bit more closely towards me and what I've done um, professionally and previously than what ACI is towards. So there's a little distinctive ebb and flow of things, but still within the realm of the arts. And I know that a lot of people will say, you do too much. You need to niche down. You need to XYZ, and I don't believe in not doing. Um, I don't believe in not doing the things that are inherently me that I'm going to do regardless. And so I just decided I'm not. I'm just gonna do it one way or another. It's been an interesting 20 something odd years of figuring out and configuring and understanding and seeing how to arrange and separate the lanes a little bit, but also how one can lead into another, how we can all work together and also give ourselves the permission to be all. I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with someone who owns an artist market, and it landed on, well, you're out here trying to be a Renaissance man, and my response was something along the lines of, you know, they didn't ask for permission to do it all, and I'm not either. And if they could do it all back then, why not now? We have more resources, we have more information, we have more knowledge and a better, less toxic and crazy support system of everything that's going around. Um, so I'm gonna chase for it. I'm gonna run towards it. I'm gonna run towards myself without any hesitations of whether or not I can do it, because I've been doing it, and just live, exist, be.
I love that. I applaud you for that. And one last question as it pertains to art. What does this work really ask of you that most people don't see?
Oh, the $1,000,000 question. The oh, the unseen work of art, the iceberg. Oftentimes people see art as, a decoration, an expression, but art art is a way of being. Art is so layered and multifaceted. It's in and of itself. It's conscious, it's awareness, it's paying attention and intention. It's perception and how we take it all in, how we lay it all down, how we convey what we're creating, how we want to, I don't want to say filter, but oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Choose is probably the simplest and conveys closely. Um, but it's a relationship between the creator and the environment and the viewer and how we want to give that presence. It's to truly create, we have to notice. We have to notice the things around us and pay attention to the world, from the largest things going on in events to the tiniest. Sometimes it's a little creature on a leaf, like a snail. Other times it's, political things in the world and picking and choosing and being very selective of how we want to convey it. I mean, slowing yourself down to see the light and the texture and then thinking about how that is conveyed through color and emotion and movement in a piece. I think I think that that process is oftentimes hidden. It's not like there's people who sit and watch me paint, and it's not something that I am posting on social media. So it's a little bit of this like hidden layer, but it's there. It's also kind of oddly how I live my life. Curating, that's probably a good word. It's curating how things I want to convey. Because while I could be looking at a vase of peonies, I don't know if I necessarily want to paint that peony in its exact form, but I want to capture that essence of it and that emotion of it, the lushness and the fragrance and the color. So, yeah. Oh, good question.
Beautifully shared. Again, I think that whether we are thinking about art
Mm.
or how art can elevate our lives or life itself, the nuance, the colors, the contrast, the perception, the way we receive it, and the way that we step into it is all part of the art of life itself.
I mean, art at its highest level it's not just about making beautiful things. It's about learning how we see differently, how to see differently, and to see different perspectives. It's how to live more consciously and more intentionally, more awake in and present in every day, and how we want to convey. Um, there's a rhythm to it. It's an unseen one, and it's also the acceptance of the impermanent. Life is beautiful and a privilege, but it's also, it's fleeting. It's a collaboration of materials and people and ideas, and not dominating over one another, but working in conjunction with each other. Um, it's not just, buy art because art is nice. Art has a meaning, to me, at least, I should say. And hopefully, this is something that resonates with people. But, art is an all encompassing, it's all encompassing. It's everywhere. It's in the cars we drive, the clothes we wear, the colors. It's it's everywhere. And I think that oftentimes people overlook it or have forgotten that it's ever present, no matter whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. I think that art teaches people to pay attention to life again, and that's something that is needed, especially nowadays.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And thank you for sharing all of that with your life and your business and your artwork. I truly think that it is astounding in what you do, what you share, what you offer to not just the people in your life, your friends, your family, and the community around you. And again, I'm so excited to be a part of that continuous circle. If you are still here watching with us, listening, buckle up. We are about to dive deeper and elevate the conversation even further. We're going to dive into a conversation about conscious living and becoming more. So let's get started. The first thing I want to talk to you about is something that we have discussed previously in private conversation: mentors, coaches, and educators, and business leadership. So we'll start there when it comes to higher conscious living, because we are on a platform right now in Elevated Conversations where this is a space for a shared community to elevate your mindset, your lifestyle, your business, your family connections, your friendship connections, relationship conversation connections and conversations, all of that above and beyond. First and foremost, I believe that it always starts with our environment and who we see as mentors, guides, people who are in leadership positions, whether we want to be in a leadership position, or coaches. If you hire a coach, what that means, the definition behind it. I'm already getting ahead of myself. So let's just pull it back for just a moment and talk about, first of all, what is higher conscious living and what does it mean to be elevated in a higher conscious state of being?
Oh, oh, the ocean. It for me personally, it's taken years of work to get here, years of integration practice, years of meditation, years of getting perspective on my life and healing my own personal traumas and cultural differences and like being between two cultures and living in the in between and navigating all of that and figuring out what can I care. Ooh, excuse me, sorry, that was Saya. What that means to me and what that carries forward and what I want to carry forward versus I consistently say that generational trauma is like, this is the line. I'm not letting it carry forward. And it's easy to say that, but then practicing and reaching how I want to handle and how I want to you know, configure my own steps and paths moving forward, how I want my life to be and to live in a present, to live presently, to live without self-sacrifice, to live with, knowing my traumas but not letting them control me or have any hold on me. And that doesn't mean that I don't get angry, but it's acknowledging that anger and then just letting it go. It's being able to take myself at face value and meeting myself exactly where I am. Not, oh, I feel like I could do more, be more, try X amount more, but really being brutally honest with myself on, this is the day, this is the capacity I have, what can we get done in this span? And, you know, am I happy every single day? I can say, yeah. I'm not quite chasing it, but am I happy all day, every day for the whole day? I think that that's such a watered down way of thinking for a lot of people that, in order to be happy every day, you got to be happy the whole day. And time changes. things shift. Sometimes you just don't have a great moment here and there, but that doesn't negate the good things that happened in that day. It doesn't make that day any less meaningful. So,
Thank you for that. I want to dive deeper in what you said, living in the between, honoring yourselves in the present moment, and the facade of being happy all day. The idea that people always tell me, how are you always in flow every day, all day? I'm not. I'm not. I feel
it's
all the
impossible.
emotions and all the feelings.
It's impossible to be in one state 24/7. That's I think that's a huge fallacy that is spread between over romanticization of what we see on TV, in media, in all the mainstream avenues. Because the reality is you could have a horrible day at work, but had a great morning. And then you choose to carry that emotion forward to some extent. And you could have a great afternoon and evening afterwards. You could have a fantastic night. Um, but it's being able to not quite flip a switch, but just let it flow away from you and what you
Mm,
don't want to carry, what you do want to carry forward. And it's that, it's and I really like using water as a metaphor for this because water is it takes the shape of the container it's in. And the ocean, even being the ocean, still has a container. It's all the land and crevices around it. But water doesn't care. It can still erode, it can still be powerful, it can still rise and fall, and it's not rigid. It can freeze and melt, it can evaporate and then rain down. It's it's the range. And I think that we as people need to realize that we also have that range within us. We're 70% water. Like it's close. So,
I agree.
but
I totally agree. You and I are one and the same on that level, on that scope. And water soft, but it's also hard and crashing. It's strong, but also unforgiving. It can carry you, but also wash you away. It can spiral you, but also allow you to float. It's in those current moments that we can either float or sway. And I think that is a beautiful analogy. And I always go back to this. You and I always go back to this, in that if we continue to try to be like water, even if we can't be, but the intention of being more fluid like water, allow and let go, the ebb and the flow is ultimately where I like to be. I know that that's where you like to be, where I encourage other people to be in that space, in our mindset, in our rhythm, in our business and life. It's not easy. But in the same way that the oceans and the waves never asked for permission to crash, you should never ask for permission to hold space under the sunlight, under the moonlight, and whatever day that you are moving through. We are water, we should move like water. So I think that is a beautiful, beautiful way to describe it.
couldn't have said it better myself. I and I mean, from that, the topic of being a coach, an educator, a mentor versus, you can and business leader, where you can be multiple things. You can be, pick a lane and stick in it. And I think that it's doable. But there's also certain things that just aren't inherently me.
Mm,
It's like I know that there's points that aren't inherently you, and we have talked about this before. In private conversations, we're very similar. We feel that there's a, and I won't speak for you, but I feel that there is a definitive line of like what I'm comfortable doing, capable of doing, want to do and share. And I love sharing. I love teaching. I love being someone that can help you navigate and figure out all the problems that are going on. But I can't give you how to be me, just like you can't give you how to be you. And the rigidity of systems is a whole different topic, adjacent. But I mean, I live crazy hours, but that's because I've always lived an international ish lifestyle. My family is, mostly overseas, but I live 12, sometimes 11 or 13-hour differences from them. And, you know, wanting that connection with them, I've shifted my schedule and also working internationally for corporate 17 years. My hours were not standard human operating hours here. And that kind of gave me this weird leverage of I can sleep when I want to sleep, but I also don't have a set sleep schedule. And I think partially it might be that my mother's also the same way. We both only need like 4 to 6 hours of sleep and we're fully functioning. Um, I'm not saying that that's healthy. I'm not saying that anyone should do that to themselves. But again, that comes down to like me, and if you require the 8 hours of sleep consecutively, then that's kind of your line and where you stand and where your non-negotiables are essentially. But I can give you answers to how to make things. I can help you, figure out how to cook things or what's missing in a recipe or what needs to be added to a garden space. Um, and y- I can't give you the essence of how to layer your own life unless you are willing to put in the work. And that's a huge part of it is the work. I think you were completely onto something when we were talking, and each person has a layer, each person has that volume that they hold, and to honor it is to honor yourself. It's to breathe life into and acknowledge your own life as it is without this hard it has to be this and this and this and it's just this set of we all have to be coherently the same across the board. We don't. Uh, we should live our lives to who we are, to exist as we are. And again, this is why we get along so well. um, and also why deeply appreciate you, because you don't find this that often and that commonly in the world. There's so many people that are just like, well, my morning is I wake up at 6, I go to work at 8, I come home at 5, and then I make dinner, and then I go to bed, and that's great. That's a huge overgeneralization that most people give. Um, but what about the in between moments? What about yourself? What do you do for self care and acknowledging that the moments and pockets of happiness that we witness and grief and disparity and like the harder stuff too. It's again back to the ocean. Like it life keeps rolling. We can only roll along with it, and we can choose to fight it. We can choose to fight against ourselves. But at the end of the day, it's not serving anyone when you do that. It's putting yourself into a position of feeling unaligned and stifled. Is
Mm.
that the word? Um,
Constricted,
constricted. Yeah.
stagnant, even.
Mm.
This is such a beautiful conversation in itself. And I feel like this is something that many people need to hear. because there is that strategic, framework. What's a framework? A strategy. As somebody who is a business strategist, and I teach about strategy and frameworks and a game plan. But when it comes to life, and it just goes back to what we were talking about, how we stepped into this conversation as it was, is living life in the in between. And especially when now you and I both are um, coinciding and coexisting and creating on a universal level where our business is global. So, well, I live in Arizona and you're on the East Coast. You're 3 hours ahead of me. I think we're 3 hours ahead of me.
Yeah.
But so I think about, and the people who are in Germany, we have friends that we connect with that are in Germany and Berlin and the UK and London, and then other people who are in California. So where I might feel behind, I'm actually early, and where other people feel that they're early, they might feel behind, and so on and so forth. And I'm already starting to breathe heavy thinking about it. Feeling out of breath and thinking about the people that says those people that are successful are the early birds. They wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and they're grinding. But on the other end of it, for people like you and I, we work till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when the whole world is sleeping. And we've talked about this. When the world is silent and the phones aren't
La
ringing and the
Luna.
emails are coming through, and I love the moon, and I get to turn on music and light a candle, and it's peaceful. So while everybody else is waking up at that time, I am turning down the lights after hours of work and constant creation. And so for me to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning isn't not my everyday. My everyday looks like me waking up at 6 a.m. because I have a son that I have to make breakfast for who goes to school, and he is on the worldwide projected school lunch, breakfast hour, dinner hour. So that's how I
Can we
had to tune in.
can we pause for a second on how trained we are from such a
Yes,
young age? And like the school system trains you that, what, you go to school like you wake up for school and you're prepped at like 6 or 7 a.m. You get on the bus, then you do the whole school day, and then you get off, and then you know you're left with the rest of your day. But what was it like for you growing up on that schedule? Because I know for me, I was still staying up until like 3, 4 in the morning, and like moving forward with my day.
same. I was always a night owl. Going to sleep was always hardest. Well, going to sleep, I always put off. Once I laid my head down, I would dive deep into sleep, and sleep I love. Don't wake me up. I love mornings, but I want to wake up when I want to wake up. I don't want to wake up disruptive. I don't want to wake up with an alarm clock. So I've been very intentional that my alarm clock is something that is soothing. And more often than not, as I've gotten older, I wake up with the sunshine, whether I like it or not. If I see the sun rays, if I see light, I wake up, my body just moves. If I want to sleep in, I mean, when I was a child, I used to be able to sleep until noon, but I have to now have it completely dark for me to not be able to move. So if I do wake up super early, I will work a lot. I get super energized, and somewhere about midday, I start to feel sleepy. And I'm not really big on caffeine a lot so much these days, although I do love coffee. I love the taste of coffee. The caffeine I'm not so much jazzed on anymore. But I'm the same. I feel like I'm still the same person. I still like to work at the quiet night time with the fresh, crisp air blowing through. I think my son is very, very much a lot like me. However, I will say that when he wakes up in the morning, he's up. It's like he doesn't have any problem. I was the child that struggled. I was not a happy child to be woken up. on a school day. I am blessed that my son, when I wake him up for school, he's like, okay, it's morning. I need a minute. I give him his time. I prepare breakfast, and we never have to fight about it. Thankfully, I'm glad. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that. Teach me. But he's the same way. When it's time to retire in the evening, he's like, I'm not tired. I'm not tired. I'm not tired. Then when we lay our head down, he's like, I'm out. And so it just goes back to what you were saying on clock and time. Time is relative, if we know that.
Like, time is a social human construct, though. I like when we're alive is when we're alive, when we're down is when we're down. And there's just so much, and this is part of, society and how things go, because businesses close and we have to follow those times to get things done. And in the ideal world of, if everything was 24/7, then, anything could get done whenever. But, we have to also shift our realities to, be realistic and not live in a land of delusions on what we want to live.
That's also argumentative.
Yeah, definitely.
Send me to the land of Delulu and
Like,
no time constraint.
well, it's so different living, on the East Coast versus living in Taiwan, because I can get anything done at almost all hours of the day. Like, you can go to 7-Eleven to pay all your bills and receive your packages and, also get a good bite to eat and not, questionable gas station food. Versus here, where it's, I'm very much growing my own food, cooking my own food, and then navigating the ins and outs of, all right, well, I have, these packages to send. Post office or, whatever shipping business is only open these very exact specific hours, and like I have to match those if I want to get things out. When naturally I would be like probably painting until like 4 or 5 in the morning. uh, Not to say that I don't do that some days.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a
And
bad thing.
well, I mean, the quiet of the world at night is just, it's a beautiful and precious space. That's, and I won't even say that it's quite silent, but there's a calm to it that just kind of washes over you and is it's a nice blanket of solitude, to some extent. And there's no urgency in the night like there is in the daytime. I love driving at night because, I mean, one, there's no one on the road, but also because there's no one on the road, there's no one speeding, and no frantic energy,
Mm,
in a sense of
so true.
I can pace, I can go at my own pace. I can move how I feel, natural without crossing any speed limits, attempting to, um, and just be. Again, I very much love living in the state of just being and existing, and trying to honor that as much as I can, to the best of my abilities these days, without exterior noise and the craziness of life. Because, I mean, I still have to go to the supermarket sometimes, but if I can choose a little bit later, a little
Mm.
bit calmer, then I'm going to do that. And I don't know if you're the same way or not.
I do. I am. I love that. I wanted, let's focus, let's zero in on that for a little bit because this, I feel like this encompasses the whole topic of where we're going on higher conscious living. And what came to my mind is that driving in the dark with the light still on. Let's go there. How about and how we live a life without timelines, without the traffic, without other people's structures, their guidelines, their rules. When we wake up, when we want to wake up, we go to work when we want to go to work. We drive intentionally to where we want to go. We're driving ourselves to our ultimate destination intentionally without worrying about who else is driving fast or slow around us, still with our internal light on, driven and guided by our internal compass. What that looks like, how we begin, how we steer that space. And for anybody who is saying, yes, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to drive in the night with the lights on, but still have the sunshine on my face. Because I'm going to say this to you right now. If you haven't realized it by this conversation, you'll recognize it in the conversation moving forward. You are the sunshine, my love. You can drive in the middle of the night and you will continue to be the light. But part of this whole podcast and these episodes is for you to recognize that you are the light, no matter where you are in the darkness. Follow the compass. So going back to that, conscious living and how we steer, and it's something that I've actually shared in another conversation where I've led in a leadership program was the title was called Steer, Don't Follow. So how we steer and navigate in our own life without feeling like we have to follow, we shouldn't follow. If you're going to follow anything, follow your inner compass, follow your internal guiding light, whether you're in darkness, whether you're in the sunshine, the tools and the tactics, what we do, whether it's waking up in the morning, if it's a morning ritual, if it's through art, if it's through soul-led guidance, whether we have a coach or a mentor. And if you don't have a coach or a mentor, they're two different things. And we'll touch on that again. A coach is somebody who's going to wake up every morning and say, encourage you to do it. Wake up, I'm your alarm clock. Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you check in? Do this, do that, do that. So there's two different type of people that need that type of coaching. But a mentorship program, and very much like Hansheng and I are, we're more educators and mentors, where we give you the information and the education and the experience tools that we have used within our lifetime and our experience to say, this is what happened to me, this is what I did, and this is what worked for me. I want to share this with you because you might try it. It might also work for you. Not in the sense that follow this list of rules and your life will change and be everything that my life is. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I wish that it did, because if it did, then all of the investments that I've had in my coaches in years before would have put me on a different type of situation, lifestyle.
Oh.
But I also have huge gratitude for that, because of those people, I had to dive deeper into self and deeper into what I really needed to find out for my lifestyle, for who I am, and to recognize that not every shape fits the peg. Remember that little ball when we were growing up and the triangle didn't fit? It's not always going to fit, but there is going to be some shape and form that will help you fit the puzzle that makes it make sense for you. So we have talked about so much up until this point: depths and levels and curves and avenues. We talked about traffic and higher conscious living and the scope of going back to living in between the lines and living in between the spaces of where society tells us this is where your happiness is going to be. And we follow, for lack of a better word, the yellow brick road. And we realize that it's an end zone. Like, don't enter here. But we're trying to follow our own path, our own journey, consciously, elevated, intentionally. And sometimes we may feel like we're in darkness. But I want to remind everybody that's watching here and this conversation through the audience that the only compass that you ever need is the inner light within you. The only street that you ever need to be on is your life path. And when you are people such as Hansheng and I, and we turn off the lights in the middle of the night, and we turn off the noise and the sound of the outside world. We do this strategically because we intentionally turn off the outside noise to listen to our own self and our internal message. I want to open up the conversation because Hancheng and I have talked about this before previously about what it's like trying to steer but not follow, steer your own life path without following what society says and what the external people, places, and things feed us time and time again on how we should be, how we need to be, how we could be to define our own happiness. And something that I want to open up the conversation with is that light, darkness, this, that, shadow, all of those things, black and white. I know you have a lot to talk about black and white and the nuance, the contrast behind it, the yin and yang. I'm gonna let you have the floor because I know that you have insight on this subject.
Oh man, we the concept of black and white, and I understand why it's a thing. I understand why it's the most common example, but we as people don't live in a black and white society. We live in gradients, in shades and hues and values and different zones, even by day, like through day as in 24-hour cycle day. What we choose to do, how we meander, how we focus and think often, changes by just the environment around us, whether it's daytime or nighttime. Why, you and I are more inclined to be more awake, aware, creative in the nighttime when everyone else is sleeping and the world is silent. But that's just what we're, more accustomed and more comfortable with. But the generalization of, everything being black, everything being white is it's kind of this false sense of it's easy to determine what, yes and no, but life isn't life isn't black and white. Life is in full color with the shade and the range and the hues. One leaf versus a different, one plant versus another. Even breaking it down to like one brand of paint versus another. It could easily have the same label, have the same color code, but it doesn't come out quite the same. The texture is different. The overall like vibrancy and brightness of it. I really challenge people to look at your daily life, look at yourself, and see where you're maybe constricting the idea of that black and white line, and focus more on the gradient scale, the value scale, and where that might be shifting throughout the day. It gives you really interesting perspective and insight. Yeah. Oh, that was just like there's like a million neurons firing and everything's fighting to have a voice, and like it's so it's one of the things that is everyone talks about it, everyone knows exactly um what you mean when you say night and day, black and white. But what does it mean to be living in that middle zone, that gray zone, that value scale? And I'm not talking about like, morally wrong and right things or
Mm.
like obvious yes, no things either. But those little changes, like I could go to the store at 5 o'clock on a Thursday, and you know that it's going to be busy and hectic versus, well, today's been a very tiring day. Maybe I need a little bit more calm. What if I went later in the night, like an hour or two before it closes? Would that give you a sense of more calm, more peace, more of what your soul needs? Little things that end up having this compounding effect of smoothing out your day. And instead of, you know, it has to be it has to be this way. It has to be this very rigid form. It has to fit, one shape into another. Um, yeah. I, ooh, sorry, still firing.
That's okay. I love that. And I also believe in that. Not to speak for you, but I feel like you and I are so much in alignment and we have conversation on top of conversations already that we are like, you get me. I see you.
Very
Thank
much so.
you so much. Um, Thank you for sharing that. Something that you ignited in me, and I am the type of person that I have visuals that pop into my mind when people speak, when especially when it resonates. And whether you call it the yin and yang, we call it the contrast, the black and white, the path, the narrow path is what I've heard people in religious scope speak about, walking the narrow path. I would like to encourage you. I think that we both would like to encourage you, anybody that's watching, to not create such a narrow path, to dance along that path. It's okay to cross over and to skip and tiptoe and go fast forward if you feel like going fast forward, or slow down, especially in those moments when you're on the path. If your compass says stop for snacks, then stop for snacks. If it says boom, boom, let's go, then let's go. You're in the flow. But not to trap yourselves in, so to speak, the black and white, because life is so colorful if you embrace it in that way and remember that it is. And because you are the artist and the creator of that path in your life, we continue to embrace it that way. And more magical moments, memories, and experiences will come to fruition when you dive into life and embrace it in that way. And I think that can be a magical way to allow art to elevate your life. It's a conversation that we started with and we will continue to have. Is there anything else that you want to add to this conversation? I know we've talked about a lot of things, but I know that you and I can continue to talk about more, and there is going to be more. So, anybody's watching, hold your seats. We will do this again. But before we close, thank you again for being a part of this conversation, this elevated conversation, and all the elevation and unity and creativity and imagination that you have brought to this space and this time with your energy. But if there's anything else that you want to invite our viewers to hold space for, or to think about, or to imagine, you are welcome to share. And I would also love to hear it.
Thank you again so much for today, for this conversation, for your energy and your time. And I invite everyone to think about the stewardship of your life from not just an everyday stance, but life is also art. There's art in what you do, there's art in your choices. Um, you just have to take a moment and recognize it and and acknowledge yourself, your being, and to really live in it and be present in that moment. Um, Thank you again for today and for the space to just speak so openly and freely about art and elevated living and mindfulness and creativity. Apparently, Kaimo also has something he'd like to say on it. Um,
We love fur babies. We do.
we do, but one of the biggest things that I hope people take away from this discussion is that art is not separate from life. It's woven into it. It's a natural beat that is just underlying and consistent, um, from the spaces that we inhabit to what we cook, what we wear, what we eat, where we walk. It's it's in the details, and yeah, it was wonderful getting to explore that with you, and I deeply appreciate you for it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I cannot express my gratitude enough,
Same.
not just for today, but for your friendship, your kindness, your presence, your being, everything that you ignite and you amplify to the world. I say this time and time again, but I feel like I can't say it enough. And for those of you who are watching, thank you for being here, part of this conversation. Uh, Tune in. We have just gotten started. There's more to come. We will continue this conversation with Hansheng. We are doing a series where he and I are diving deeper into more conversations, different topics, higher elevation. I will leave all of the details and the links for his school community program, ACI Collective, on school. So be sure to tune in, join the community. I will see you there. I'm a part of his community. I could not speak louder about it. If you're artistic, if you're not artistic, you were born artistic. If you're creative, come join the conversation, come join the love. I will see you there. If I forget to say anything in this final closing, I will be sure to include it in the memo and the description. Until then, until tomorrow, until the next day, until our next episode, I wish you well, live, love, and flow. And I hope you continue to live an elevated life and continue with an elevated conversation. Love you much. I'll see you soon.